Imagine you're in the cockpit, right? Strapped in, engines roaring, runway lights blurring past. Most people, I guess, think, okay, that part, flying the plane, pulling back the stick, that's the job. Everything else feels secondary. But what if the person in the other seat, the one not actually flying at that moment, is doing something just as crucial, maybe even more so sometimes?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it, how we focus on the obvious action. And sometimes we miss the importance of these other quieter roles, especially in high-stakes situations.
Totally, and that's what we're getting into today, this idea of effective pilot monitoring. It sounds kind of passive, maybe, but it's really not. It's this incredibly active, vital role, just as important as, hands-on flying. We're drawing on Captain Ashutosh Chopra's The Commercial Pilot's Handbook, specifically Chapter-5. And our mission for you today is to really unpack why this monitoring is called the last line of defense in keeping flights safe. There are some surprising insights here, I think, and principles that actually go way beyond aviation.
It really is a shift in how you look at it, moving from just seeing the doing part to understanding how critical constant, careful observation is.
Okay, so let's tackle that common idea head on. The pilot monitoring, the PM, has the lesser job compared to the pilot flying, the PF. Captain Chopra really argues against this. He says, no, the PM's duties are equally significant.
And, the language change tells you a lot. It used to be PNF, pilot not flying.
Yeah.
But the industry intentionally switched it to PM pilot monitoring. That word monitoring emphasizes the active role, right? It's not about what they aren't doing. It's about the vital task they are doing.
Right. So the goal for both is the same. Get the plane there safely and efficiently. The PF handles the direct control, sure, but the PM's job is explicitly to, prevent things going wrong, to prevent loss of control, make sure they're sticking to the plan.
Exactly. It's like they're working in tandem. Constant communication, constant cross-checking. They really depend on each other.
And that brings up a crucial point. If something does start to go sideways, with B controls or a system, where's the safety net?
Well, that's where monitoring becomes absolutely critical. It really is the final barrier between a small problem and, something much worse. That's why the PM stepping in quickly and correctly is just so important.
Okay, but you'd think monitoring is just intuitive. You just look around, pay attention. Easy, right? The book says, nope, not at all. Why is that such a misconception that it's easy?
That's a great point. Because it feels like it should be simple. But the book insists it's absolutely not intuitive. It's a learned skill, like really learn it. It takes discipline, constant effort. It needs training, assessment, just like the actual flying skills.
So it's not just something you pick up.
Not at all. And here's the interesting twist. Because the PM isn't burdened with the physical act of flying, they actually have more mental bandwidth, more cognitive resources available. This means they can often build up a better overall picture, better situational awareness essay than the pilot flying. They're better placed to spot trouble brewing.
Wow, okay, so not flying is actually an advantage for awareness.
In many ways, yes. It frees up the mind for observation and analysis.
Which means, if a PM feels their own essay slipping, maybe they're tired, distracted, whatever they actually need to double down on monitoring.
Precisely. Recognize the degradation, increase the focus. It's a feedback loop.
So how does monitoring actually build that situational awareness? What's the process?
Well, it starts with being really sensitive to all the inputs, what you see, what you hear, instrument readings, paying close attention. Then you're constantly comparing what you're observing with what you expect to see. What should the aircraft be doing right now? Any difference, any deviation that generates feedback.
And that feedback loop from PM to PF, that's where the communication comes in. It has to be spot on, right? Correct, precise, clear, and assertive, depending on how serious it is.
Absolutely. And if there's a lot going on, multiple things demanding attention, the PM needs to understand the PF's overall plan, their intent, to know what feedback is most important right now.
Okay, this leads into something called sequential monitoring. Vision is key, obviously, but you can't look everywhere at once.
No, you physically can't. It's like juggling. You have to develop a scan pattern. Look here, then there, then back again. Prioritize. And developing that efficient, effective scan pattern, that's an art. It takes practice.
Makes sense. And the book breaks monitoring down further into types.
Yes, 3 main types. First, there's active monitoring. This is very focused, very immediate, like closely watching the flight path during a tricky maneuver.
Okay. Then passive monitoring. Sounds laid back, but I bet it isn't.
Not at all. It's the routine, but still super important checks. Navigation accuracy, autopilot modes, engine gauges, system status. It's the background hum of vigilance.
And the third?
Periodic monitoring. This is for things you check less frequently but are still critical, like fuel levels, cabin pressure, temperature. You space these checks out over time.
Got it. Active, passive, periodic. And weaving through all of that is this idea of a persistent monitoring scan.
Exactly. It's like the PF's instrument scan, but for the PM. It needs to become second nature. A disciplined, comprehensive scan. The aim. Nothing gets missed. No critical flight parameter, no engine reading drifting off, no warning light flashing unnoticed. That's the goal.
So what gets in the way? What stops this ideal vigilance? The book mentions barriers.
Oh, definitely. Human factors are huge here. Distraction and fixation are big ones. You get so focused on one thing, maybe a minor issue, that you completely miss something else far more critical happening.
Yeah, the book has that chilling example, a landing gear issue. And it distracted the entire crew so much they didn't notice the plane descending. It's awful.
Tragic illustration. And the defense against that kind of tunnel vision, it comes back to that disciplined, persistent scan. Keep moving your attention.
And that sterile cockpit rule helps here too, doesn't it? Usually below 10,000 feet.
Absolutely. It's a procedural defense. No non-essential chat, no distractions during critical phases like takeoff, approach, landing. Forces focus.
But it's not just outside distractions. What about internal stuff, like being tired or bored?
Huge factors. Lethargy, complacency, especially on long flights with little happening. Boredom sets in. Fatigue, sleep deprivation. They kill attentiveness.
So what can crews do about that?
Well, one practical thing is to consciously shift duties. Swap the PF and PM roles during quiet periods. Helps keep both minds more engaged.
Makes sense. Keep things fresh. What else? Lack of diligence?
Yes, simply not being thorough enough. And specifically, failing to cross-check each other. The book gives examples, like punching in the wrong departure procedure into the flight computer.
The FMC, right, the plane's brain.
Exactly. And neither pilot catches the error. Maybe air traffic control spots it, maybe not. Or worse, failing to double-check critical coordinates for navigation. These aren't hypotheticals. These things have led to accidents.
So monitoring inherently means cross-checking. They're intertwined.
You could say that. One implies the other in an effective crew.
Okay, so critical phases of flight takeoff, landing obviously need even more intense monitoring, planning ahead for it.
Absolutely. You ramp up the vigilance before entering those phases. And you have to be especially careful if the PM gets tied up with something else, like running a checklist for a non-normal situation, because then momentarily the PF has to pick up some of that monitoring slack.
Right, when the PM is heads down. So who flies then, typically, if there's a problem?
The recommendation is usually for the captain, the pilot in command, or PIC, to take the controls as PF. The thinking is they generally have more experience, which frees up some mental capacity to also keep an eye on the bigger picture, while the first officer, as PM, handles the checklist actions.
But what if the captain is the one feeling stressed or tired?
Well, that's where good judgment airmanship comes in. The book stresses this. A good captain recognizes their own limitations. If they're not feeling 100%, they should absolutely ask the first officer to fly. Safety first.
That's really important. Okay, let's talk about predictive monitoring. This sounds interesting. It's not just seeing what is wrong, but what might go wrong.
Exactly. It's a more advanced level. It's noticing something that isn't technically out of limits yet. No warning bells are ringing. But it's just not quite right. It's not normal for this phase of flight.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Maybe you're in cruise and an engine's N2 reading. Think of it like RPM is usually around, say, 93%.
Yeah.
But today it's sitting at 87%. No warnings, nothing technically broken. But it's lower than usual for these conditions.
So it's a subtle clue.
A very subtle clue. Predictive monitoring is catching that deviation from the expected norm and thinking, that's odd. Why? It prompts discussion. Is something starting to degrade?
That fights complacency, doesn't it? Prevents just passively accepting things until a light comes on.
Absolutely. It requires knowing what normal looks like in great detail and actively looking for those subtle shifts. It's very proactive.
And this ties into task management too, right? Monitoring can fail if people are just too overloaded or doing things in the wrong order.
Definitely. If tasks aren't scheduled properly, if unimportant things push out the time needed for that monitoring scan, lapses will happen. The PIC has a responsibility here to manage the workload, make sure the PM actually has the headspace to monitor effectively, maybe deferring less critical tasks.
So it's about protecting that monitoring time. Let's shift to the monitor themselves. What makes someone good at this? What are the key attributes? This ties into CRM, crew resource management, doesn't it?
Big time. CRM is all about teamwork, communication, using all available resources, and the PM role is central to that. So key attributes. First, a really clear understanding of what the pilot flying intends to do. What's the plan?
It's not clear.
Then you ask, query, challenge, clarify, never assume.
Okay, clarity on intent. What else?
This one's interesting.
Yeah.
The book mentions cultivating a mild suspicion of the PS actions.
Suspicion, that sounds negative.
Not necessarily negative. Think of it more like healthy skepticism. Not distrust, but just constantly checking. Is what the PF is doing actually matching the plan we discussed? It helps catch deviations early. And a similar skepticism when looking at the aircraft systems. Is everything really okay? It helps you spot developing issues sooner.
So a questioning attitude, basically, and then being able to speak up.
Crucial. The ability to intervene. And the intervention needs to be precise, clear, assertive. And this is key, without startling the PF. You don't want your intervention to cause a problem by making the PF jump or lose focus. It's a fine line.
Firmness and finesse. Got it. And we should clarify, the pilot flying is also monitoring, right? They aren't just blindly manipulating controls.
Oh, absolutely. It's subconscious to some extent. When flying manually, they're constantly scanning instruments. When the autopilot is engaged, they're monitoring the flight path, checking the autopilot modes. You could say the PF is the first line of defense for monitoring their own actions and the immediate flight path. The PM is the vital second line, the broader safety net.
They back each other up. Which brings us back squarely to CRM.
Exactly. Good CRM practices make all this work. It creates an environment where the PM feels psychologically safe to speak up, to voice concerns, without fear of being shut down.
So the PF plays a role in enabling the PM.
A huge role. The PF should actively encourage it. During briefings, they should say things like, okay, monitor me closely on this approach, or if you see the airspeed drop below X, call it out immediately.
Setting clear expectations for call-outs.
Yes, and proactively discussing potential hazards beforehand. Okay, weather's moving in from the west, let's keep an eye on that. That builds shared SA.
And one critical CRM, don't. The book warns against both pilots doing the same thing at once.
Yes. Especially heads-down tasks, like both pilots trying to program the FMC at the same time during a busy, critical phase. If both are looking down, who's looking out? Who's monitoring the aircraft? SA plummets incredibly fast in those situations. Divide the tasks.
Right, avoid shared blindness. Okay, so this leads to the ultimate point. Intervention. When does the PM have to step in forcefully?
Well, the mantra is, timely intervention is key. It starts with bringing observations to the PF's attention. Hey, airspeed is low, or we're drifting off course.
And if the PF doesn't respond, or if things are happening really fast,
then the PM has to escalate. Remind them, maybe more assertively, check your speed.
And the final step, the absolute last resort.
If warnings are ignored, or if time is utterly critical for safety, the PM has the responsibility, the obligation actually, to physically take control of the aircraft.
Wow. That's a huge step.
It is. And there's one absolutely non-negotiable rule when that happens.
What's that?
The PM must clearly and loudly announce, I have controls, before their hands touch the controls.
Why is that so critical?
Because if they don't, you risk having two pilots fighting for control without realizing it. That's a complete breakdown of CRM. Incredibly dangerous. That call-out ensures a clear transfer of control. It's fundamental discipline.
Okay, so wrapping this all up. Pilot monitoring. It's clearly not passive, not secondary.
Not at all. It's highly active, requires immense discipline, training. It's about constant vigilance, sharp communication, and, the courage to intervene decisively when needed. It's about being diligent, proactive. Captain Chopra calls it creating your own good luck through awareness. I like that.
Me too. Creating your own luck. So let's bring this back to everyone listening. Think outside the cockpit for a second. How do these ideas apply to your life, your job, any complex situation you deal with? Vigilance against getting fixated on one thing. The importance of cross-checking information or assumptions. That idea of predictive monitoring. Looking for what's not quite right, even if it's not broken yet.
Yeah, and the need for clear, sometimes assertive communication, knowing when you need to step in, maybe take the lead, even if it's uncomfortable. These principles are pretty universal, aren't they?
They really are. So here's a final thought for you to take away. What are the parameters in your own work, or maybe even your personal life, that might not be out of range right now, but are maybe not normal? What needs your predictive monitoring?
And maybe ask yourself, how can you create a sterile cockpit for your own important tasks? How do you minimize distractions when you really need to focus and be aware? Something to think about.